I could take 25 million, I could make 25 million over the next 7 years, and it would all be tax-free. Oh, and I would save £600,000. So I had to unlearn what I've been doing for the last 41 years, because all the smart people in Monaco don't buy property. If you do what average people do, guess what? You're going to end up average. All of us, in a general sense, are one decision away from a completely and utterly different life. Welcome to this week's edition of Money Matters, because as you know, I believe money does matter. So I'm sat here thinking. I'm thinking about a £100 million decision. All of us, in a general sense, are one decision away from a completely and utterly different life. So I want to share with you my decision, and then I want to talk about the decision that everybody makes or doesn't. So what's the detail of my decision? Well, I'm often inspired by Warren Buffett. If you said to Warren Buffett, how did you make your billions? He would say, well, Paul, I just sit in my office, I read, and I think. So this is one of my thinking places, on my balcony here in the sunshine. It's lovely. So when Monaco and myself moved to Monaco, we made the decision a couple of years now, is well, we're going to buy something in Monaco because we're property investors. What's the problem with assumptions? If you make assumptions consistent with what everybody else in your peer group does, you're going to end up right then. Do most people in the UK buy property or rent property? Most people buy it. 70% of people buy, 30% of people rent in the UK. What do wealthy people do here in Monaco? And this is something I had to unlearn, but let me give you the figures. I've got the opportunity in 2024 to purchase this apartment for £25 million. What would the benefit be of doing that? Well, if I bought the apartment, I wouldn't have to pay rent, and that's quite a lot of money. The monthly rent on this apartment, just the rent, not the service charge, just the rent, is £50,000, which is £600,000 a year. So if I took my cash and I said, well, I'm going to swap my money for an apartment, it would save me £60,000 in rent, because I would have no rent if I bought it for cash. I still have to pay the service charge, that will make no difference. And how would it give me any financial benefit? It give me financial benefit because, on average, properties in Monaco double every 7 to 10 years. So my £25 million investment in 7 years' time would have made a profit of about £25 million. I could take 25 million, I could make 25 million over the next 7 years, and it would all be tax-free. Oh, and I would save £600,000 a year in the bargain. So that sounds pretty good, doesn't it? I then put my Warren Buffett head on, and I decided to, and typically what I'll do is I tend to get up around 6:30, 6:45. The sun comes up a little bit after that this time of year, and I actually sit on this balcony and think for about half an hour before I do anything else. Just have a little coffee and looking out at the sea, watching the boats, and have a think. And increasingly I've been thinking about, should I buy this property or not, because it's a £25 million decision, and I compared it to what could I do in the UK. Now in the UK I can get a 75% loan to value mortgage. What does that mean, Paul? Well, it means if I use the 25 million as a deposit, round numbers, I could borrow 75 million. So my 25 million to buy this flat, I could turn it into £100 million worth of UK property. 25% deposit, 75% mortgage. I prefer, my sweet spot in the UK is properties at round about £250,000. On average, I would buy 4 properties per million. But if I've got 100 million, that means I would buy 400 properties. So now the question becomes, and if you want a better quality of life, by the way, you need to learn to ask a better quality of question. So would you rather have £25 million apartment in Monaco or 400 properties in the UK? On average, how much profit would I make per property? Well, I know that because I've got lots of £250,000 properties already. I don't have 400, but I've got a lot. And on average, after you've paid the mortgage and paid all your expenses, they make roughly £500 a month each profit. But if you've got 400 of them per month, how much extra profit would that be? £200,000. Oh, that's a lot. But that isn't actually the main number. Properties in the UK also double every 7 to 10 years. So my £100 million worth of property now, in 7 to 10 years, is probably going to be worth 200 million. So the same capital deployed here gives me 25 million profit, tax-free. The same amount of capital deployed in the UK gives me £100 million. You might be thinking it's a £25 million decision. It's not. It's a £100 million decision. So where am I? I'm sat on the balcony in Monaco thinking, what am I thinking? I'm thinking I'm very wealthy, I'm doing very well. I'm the kid that left home with 170 quid when I was 17 and I live here in Monaco. And I'm on my way to stop being a millionaire and to become a billionaire. Could I make that investment in the UK, keep on renting this property here in Monaco, use the extra 2.4 million to pay the rent? So 2.4 million of income, 600,000 of rent, I make an extra 1.8 million each and every year. Now, it sounds obvious when I put it that way, doesn't it? But I had to go against years of training. I've been a property investor now for 41 years. So I had to unlearn what I've been doing for the last 41 years, because all the smart people in Monaco don't buy property. What do? They rent it. All the smart people in the UK, they buy property. They don't rent it. It's the opposite. You can't take one set of assumptions and put it into a new environment and assume you get the same answer. Well, you can, but you're probably going to be wrong a lot of the time. That is the nature of assumptions. You are one decision away from a completely and utterly different life. How can you take your old thinking, how you used to run your life? Because if you do what average people do, guess what? You're going to end up average. You're going to end up probably owning a £300,000 house. It's probably going to be paid off by the time you retire, and you're probably going to have a £15,000 pension, which is not great because the cost of living is £23,000. Now, if you don't want that, how do you do something different instead? How do you take my equivalent, my learning, do something different in a new environment? So let's make this as similar as we can to my decision. I'm going to pretend that you've got a £300,000 or £400,000 house and it's paid off, or you're in the process of paying it off. Now, let's assume you could release £250,000, £250,000, because most of you can that are watching this video. And you might only release 150, but you might have 100 in savings, or you might have some stocks and shares, or you know, I don't know. But most of you can get your hands on £250,000. But you don't want to because you feel safer, you feel more relaxed, you feel less stressed, whatever that means, because you've paid off your mortgage. I want to challenge that. I want to challenge that assumption. I want to get you to think differently. So with your £250,000, you can buy the property that you're living in for cash, which is my equivalent of buying this apartment. I mentioned earlier that my sweet spot is £250,000 properties. So you could go and buy a house or an apartment somewhere. You still easily could. Or you could use it as a deposit and you could borrow 75%. So suddenly your £250,000 isn't £250,000 anymore, it's now 1 million. And for your 1 million, you could buy some of my favorite £250,000 properties. You could go and buy 4, couldn't you? So your 4 £250,000 properties, they bring in £500 a month each after all bills and expenses and whatever else. You've now got 4 buy-to-let. You could do more advanced strategies, Touchstone can teach you about that, but let's just focus on buy-to-lets, keep it easy. So you've just increased your income by £2,000 a month. So your investment properties are giving you £2,000 a month. Now, okay, you've suddenly got to pay a mortgage on a property that you maybe didn't have to pay it on before, but it's not £2,000 a month. To borrow £250,000 at 4%, I'll tell you exactly what it is. It's £10,000 a year. You've got to cover £10,000 a year. So your £2,000 a month from your investment properties is £24,000 a year. You've now got to pay a mortgage that you didn't have to pay before, which is an extra £10,000 a year. So you just made an extra £14,000 a year income. See, same ratio. I make an extra 2.4 million, but I've still got to pay £600,000 in rent. Your equivalent, you make £24,000, but you've got to pay £10,000 in mortgage that you didn't have to pay before. From day one, you're making an extra 14 grand a year. Would an extra 14 grand a year be helpful to you? More importantly, you've now got £1 million worth of investment property and you've still got your own property. So your £1 million worth of investment property, 7 to 10 years, becomes £2 million. You just made £1 million in the next 7 years. And the home that you live in went up in value as well. And all during that time, even after you've paid off the extra mortgage, you've made an extra £14,000. It's a new way of thinking. It's the right way of thinking. And your choice, my friends, is you either stay doing what you've always done and you're trying to pay your mortgage off, or you think about it in a different way. This isn't some hypothetical exercise. This is your opportunity to change your life. I don't want to be the party pooper and spoil your life or anything, but you've only got one. I don't know what age you are, but you ain't getting your younger years back. I would encourage you to make the most of each and every minute. My mission, I'm on my way to becoming a billionaire. I'm actually sat here, I'm 58 years old at the moment. I want to be a billionaire by the time I'm 65. That's my plan for the next 6-7 years. If your plan for the next 6 or 7 years was to become a millionaire, maybe there'll be 2 chairs on this balcony a few years from now. Tell me what you think I should do. Should I buy this apartment or should I go and buy 400 in the United Kingdom? Your input is welcome. My decision is made. What I really want to learn and understand and learn from you is what you are going to do. Einstein said, didn't he, the fundamental definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. You want a different result, money-wise, guess what? You need to do something different. And if you've been searching for, well, what is that different thing? We just told you what you need to do. Unlock that lazy money, stop trying to pay off your mortgage, and make that money work for you. You've been wonderful. I've been Paul. See you next time.